one of the comments was, can we do something with the gossiping and the rumor stuff, which actually does fall into inefficiencies. So any questions with that before we move on?
So when we say quality standards, what are we referring to?
It's the, and I believe, Todd, you're going to have to help me out, the APA, right?
They have the APA, or the core standard that they maintain their level 1 for like Cornell Health and the vet school, and then I think it's 2.5 and 3. Daryl would have to help me out with that on the remainder of campus, and they maintain those, or the auditing through that is through supervisors and their managers, the ADs, walking through with their phones or iPads with it's called a Smart Inspect.
Yep.
So they can walk through, take pictures of any deficiencies, sort of a checklist item, and then the report gets uploaded. And then so that custodian or the supervisor of the custodian can understand the status of their area, how it's being cleaned, and have picture or video proof of any deficiency that's out there.
Sure, and just to add to it, with the Smart Inspect tool that they use to measure quality, they measure each custodian individually. So it's not like it's just a building by building, which it's also, you can get a report by building, but it's also to measure performance of each custodian.
Okay. And then when we talk about minimizing inefficiencies, whose point of view is that coming from?
Sorry.
Sorry, Brigitte. Todd had included that in one of his metrics, and I agree with that. So just say the time clock is in one building, and so you clock in at one building and you do what you got to do, but you have to walk all the way across to the the other end of the area where you're working in to do another building. So where's that efficiency coming in for they have to walk from point A to point B and get waylaid along the way?
Yeah, this is one of the inefficiencies that actually is justified, I would say. Like, it makes sense, but there's a lot of other tiny stuff that there's like, I don't know how we can measure all the time, like just sleeping or, chatting, or I don't know how these we can actually take care of.
So this is certainly a work in progress. This is a draft, but this is how we were pulling information out of the qualitative. And so there are inefficiencies, some defined by kind of downtime that has nothing to do with operations or, tools, et cetera. It's just personal choice of not working.
Okay, that's helpful. So I am good with the qualitative thing, because that's really big picture. You're going to need to put some thought to, well, what exactly are we trying to get after that we could measure, right? And we all want to pretend, or at least I'm always tempted, especially when I'm reading those management books you pick up in the airport bookstores, that we're going to, if we only hired the A+ workers, we would be fine. And all those guys are the ones on this call, and we have all the B+ workers that we still need to clean buildings with. So we gotta have a human factor that's allowed for here, but I don't want to just say, oh well, it's too hard. We need to strive for efficiency. I would think we need to put a little thought to how we're going to get after the piece that we think we can affect, and then measure our progress accordingly. Okay, that's good.
And so this is the next steps based on the qualitative would be, these are the metrics. So this was the brainstorm of metrics that we could use to monitor success in these programs. And so that team developed this set of metrics. Some will be KPIs, some will just be metrics that perhaps on a very lower level we would just monitor. And then in the EAB document, the very lengthy document, it did provide categories in which categories are performance being measured. So we talked about efficiencies, efficacy. There were a few other size of operations. This one doesn't actually account for this. And so this is an exhaustive list at this point, but this is something that we started to come up with. The team did. I don't want to take any credit for this at this point. Contributing factors. So when I use the campus to campus example, if monthly ridership is down, what do you start looking at? And it's marketing and number of trips, canceled, weather events, all of these things. So these would be the contributing factors that if the quality inspection results based on current service level APA 2.5 is either higher or lower, then you'd start looking at number of employees, number of completing tasks, buildings requiring coverage, and there may be more. And so these are the things, this is the next level dive to see if we can explain why that metric had decreased or increased, or, it's okay to be static, and in which case, if that's always, then you wouldn't necessarily spend that much time.
Yeah. So I have a question either for Dave or Daryl on how it's being done right now. So if I know we're already doing some number of these, how do we measure or evaluate them? Is it like, okay, the percentage of time you spend in the zone, or is it, misses, or like, how are we deciding if you're in that sort of upper and lower control limits right now?
Well, when it comes to like quality inspections, it'll tell you in the report within the Smart Inspect program how you rated per the APA 2.5, I guess, that were to.
But how does it? My question really is, what does it tell you exactly in that report? You were in it for this shift, or as of this snapshot in time? What's the message back to a supervisor?
It's a snapshot in time.
Okay. Okay, so here would be something to think about. Would be, we need snapshots, but we also need to build a picture. So, if maybe a snapshot is a pixel that builds a picture that would say, hey, you're generally in the zone, or maybe you're over in certain areas. You got one diligent employee who's spending too much time, polishing and not enough time helping his or her buddy out, or we're below standard too much of the time. And so it's not, you seem to have some aggregation in terms of level. I think there needs to be some time aggregation too.
Yes.
Make sense?
Are you
Okay.
are you referring to a benchmark of based on?
We have a bench.
footage?
Yeah. In the case of building care, which is a shining example because we don't have it very many other places, we have a benchmark with the APPA cleaning standards. So there is a level to which we are grading ourselves against.
Okay.
Against which we are grading ourselves. Okay, this is good. Keep going. What else on this one?
All right, so then the contributing factors, and we're also at Jason's advice, using the balance scorecard. So which part of the balance scorecard is this addressing? And it can address, more than one.
Yep.
So just to make sure that we're not being, unilateral in our, not unilateral, but binary in our thought process.
Okay. What's the time of employment for managers, time of employment for SO2? This is seniority on the job, or what is this?
That was Todd and I traded some notes. It was seniority or years of service, months of service. So if somebody had you could balance a really good or a really bad score with how long has that person been around. Contributing factors as I look toward recruiting, why is that person here for a long time? I didn't put it on there, but I was thinking, maybe that's because, they were hired or they stayed on during economic downturns or whatever else. So really like the service.
Okay. You might just, there is something there. I totally agree, Dave. That one probably is one of these asymptotic things where it's not climbing infinitely at the same slope. There's a point at which you've mastered your set of duties, and more time doesn't contribute the same amount. It might still help, but maybe not the same amount.
No, and obviously we're just brainstorming metrics here.
Yeah.
Not all of them will be ones that you want to follow or use. One thing that I'd suggest I put on there was like, absentee rate, beyond paid time off, because that seems to be something that really impacts our quality, is when we have absentee, maybe it's they're out on family health leave, or, they're out for long periods of time, recurring injuries or something like this that comes up. And those seem to be the ones that really impact our time clocks as far as quality.
Yeah, good point. And I was going to observe that the safety one, slips, trips, and falls, et cetera, is effectiveness and efficiency, because of the reasons that you're talking about, Todd. Somebody gets hurt, and you got them on pay, but you're not getting work out of them, and that's not optimal. Okay.
Rick, one of the things that we looked at as well on the trade side that might be work for this, I don't know if I put it on here, was how close they are to retirement. So I know, if you look at our trades, how much we can expect in the next 5 years to lose a significant portion of those experienced trades. So that could tie back into the time of employment for the SO2s and the managers. How many do we expect to lose? And are we going to have to go through a big recruiting phase the next couple of years?
That's a good one.
Maybe.
Yeah, that would probably start crossing into some different boundaries, but it certainly would feed into your effectiveness. Is there a training piece that's also in the effectiveness or efficiency category? Like, do we have a required training track for a new hire, and can we track their progress through that?
Well, I think we can add it because it would be internal growth perspective. So training component in any regard. I think that there may be something in the trades piece.
And I think if
the custodial team has a quite an extensive training program.
Okay.
Yes, I would think it could be tracked. We have Robin Keith, who leads the safety group for the custodians.
Okay, that's probably a lower level metric, not necessarily the top level one, but I just don't want to, if we're still in brainstorming mode and figuring out, what are the foundational ones and what feeds into the higher level ones, I'd like you to keep that one in the running for a more foundational one. Okay, any other comments or thoughts on this one? I think I pointed out the ones that occurred to me.
I would just say, if we're starting to use inspections like that Smart Inspect process, it sounds like it's obviously, I think it's a critical thing for custodial inspections. Probably one way you're going to get it, qualitative performance. But I think maybe training on that and making sure you're getting consistency of the inspection results, and then how are you following up with that? Obviously, we don't want to develop metrics that we're not using.
Yeah, that's a good one, and really it should be consistent with a plan, so you don't have one building or one wing of a building where right outside Todd's office gets inspected the heck out of, and we make sure it's shining, and that's at the expense of something else. I don't know. That would never happen, of course.
No.
Maybe
nowhere is gonna shine.
Maybe one other area that I'm not sure it's here, and maybe goes across a number of them, is what about the kind of endpoint or customer satisfaction score, right? I know that there'll be inspections done by professionals, but building occupant or somehow that endpoint survey might be something you want to roll in there.
Is that included in the redo calls? If there's a customer, that would be customer perspective, it looks like, in the balanced scorecard. Is that what was envisioned there? I guess I was kind of thinking it was, but
maybe.
That's what I was looking at, but it might be FM, ask them to come back. Some of that might also been for us to look at, is there a systemic problem? Like we had vomit calls all through the winter, and that you might call that a redo, but in a way it isn't. Trade notes with some other people throughout all this. I think the hard part would be you don't get a lot of feedback from students. You get feedback, but not every call or not every service that they do gets feedback. you tend to get more negative feedback than you get positive feedback. So while I agree, I think customer feedback is great. I don't know if you can judge that on performance, because like I said, I think you'd see a lot more negative feedback than you would with kudos or attaboys.
Well, I'm thinking more like that building, whoever the occupant organization is, that management level might have heard many different feedback from their occupants, and it might be something that you'd want to roll in there, because if me or Christy is saying, hey, everything's great in human ecology, you might want to capture that on a regular basis, because then if suddenly we're complaining about it, you might say, hey, you guys tell me everything's great all the time. What's up with this?
Okay.
Sudden turn of things.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think there would be, and I don't want to try to slice this too fine, but Dave and Daryl, there's certainly a category of callbacks that you get where you look at it and go, yeah, we missed that one. That one's on us. And then there are some other ones that you look at it and go, we'll fix it, but that's either inside the periodicity of when we said we'd show up, or somebody threw up on the floor and that wasn't actually part of the original plan, so we'll come and fix that too. But there's a thing of inside what you should already be doing in the Apple level and then not. And it would be helpful to distinguish those, because if, for instance, we either decided we want a higher level in a certain area, or we had to educate people on what the level actually is, those would be different responses to that category, as opposed to the other category was you got a training problem, you got an employee quality issue to deal with that's inside of what you signed up to do.
So I think that actually gets at a fundamental problem that we have right now, is that a survey like Craig's talking about isn't really possible, because we don't have an agreed upon level of service. I mean, Apple level 2.5 is made up. You cannot go to find that level of service. It's between 3 and 2. So when we go to tell a customer, no, that's the level of service we're supposed to be expecting, there's no document. The SLA is out of date. And so we cannot tell them what the standard that they're actually supposed to be cleaning to is. Like, my office only got vacuumed once this month. Well, that is the standard.
In this one we have a de facto budgetary standard, but you're right, there's nothing you can point to and say this is what we said we would do.
Right. So when you're talking to people, like the people in their offices or the people that complain about the glass is not cleaned, well, what is the frequency that is we're actually buying, and are we meeting? Can we tell them no, that is per the standard, or is it really a complaint that it doesn't meet the standard? So I think a baseline thing is we really need to have what is the standard, what can we expect, so that we can give initial feedback to our customers, like they are not, or you have a valid complaint, or no, they're meeting the requirements.
So can we go back one slide, Bridget, to the success criteria? Do we have that point that you just made, Tom? Is that adequately captured in the quality standard?
I don't think we have a quality standard right now.
Yeah, I think that's its point.
So I think moving forward,
some people think you do, but not everybody does. I guess that's my point.
People have expectations, but are they beyond the standard or on the standard, or
Okay.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but my point, which I think all of this is great, my point was kind of even maybe at a higher level, which is monthly. Are we saying, hey, this is working, or geez, I've got concerns, right? I mean, even at that level, it's something where it's a thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you guys need to have a conversation with us because we're not satisfied, or hey, things are moving along fine, and all these other measures are going to be fed into this bigger thing, but at least you get a temperature taken from that building or unit leadership on a regular basis, so that you don't have surprises, and we're held accountable to give you, some regular feedback.
This is good. This is like a meta level, Craig. This is like, how often did we get in the box on the metrics, and we're measuring how often we got in there. I like that. All right. I think what I would like to see in this thing, and I don't think it's, at least on the first pass until Tom's comment, I don't think I necessarily saw this, is that there's an aspect of transparency and ability to communicate that quality standard, which it is not everything we want it to be. So I don't know Well, I'll leave it to you guys to try to figure out how to get to that. But qualitatively, I think that's part of this. I think there's a thing of people's understanding of the standard, and then we're meeting the standard. Maybe that's just assumed, but I'm making it explicit. So that we are able to say, no, actually, that is a departure from the standards, or no, actually, that is per the standard, and we'll get it the next time around.
So, Rick, one of the things that we haven't done yet is establish who will receive the communication at what level.
Yeah.
Craig was actually talking about, the meta data where he and Pat will actually help develop a horizontal review from different for different aspects.
Yep.
These boots on the ground.
Good.
So we're not quite there yet, and there are a few other items. So we don't have agreed upon standards yet. That's the next step. So really, this is all of the metrics that we could apply if data is.
I got you. Those are two different things. What I'm talking about with Tom is a different. That's a people understanding. Hey, my office should be vacuumed every week, and they're doing it. They're achieving that standard. But this understanding of frequency is an element that I'm picking up here, which is separate from the meta level analysis that Craig is talking about. So I see those as two different things.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
That Smart Inspect tool that currently I think the supervisors are using, could the customer use that as a polling tool? Because depending on the feedback, that could be an indication with the custodial cleaning, but it could also indicate a need to educate your customer. And it seems like it'd be consistent. You'd be using existing tools, maybe not as arbitrary as like a survey.
So currently, the building coordinator is invited to every inspection, whether they participate or not. That I don't know. But Keith has made it clear that the building coordinator is to be invited for all inspections.
And they do it themselves to get another data point?
Yeah. We've got an idea that a team is going to explore in that regard. So the answer to that is yes, but I think the charter of this team doesn't go as far into that. So let's kind of keep it on. How are we going to get the input on that? We'll talk some more in other parts of the functional review of, are we going to expand the construct in some way? Andy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how are the facilities coordinators or building managers being notified of that inspection? That's not something I was aware of.
It's supposed to be an email.
Well,
okay,
there you go.
We're getting a little in the weeds, so this is good. You guys, I would encourage you to communicate on this front, because there clearly are going to be some elements to work on to achieve what we're talking about. So right now we're talking big picture. So we got success criteria in words. We're boiling success criteria into specifics. Then we're going to need to talk about, okay, how do you actually get there? And we're going to have a bunch of stuff like Andy has pointed out, of like, oh, really? We're doing that? I didn't get that memo. So, but hold that thought and start a list, because there's going to be a lot of those things that we're going to need to lower obstacles and get smoother. So we'll get to that. So I'm sorry.
Let's move on. But one of the things that we will be looking at in subsequent exercises would be that what are the strategic decisions based on what happens with this metric? And so what are you going to do with all of this information? It may be we send different communication, right? So we're talking about also in some of these, and I don't think that the narrative has reflected that, but transparency, everybody should have access to the Tableau so that they can see where we're at as far as inspections and the like. So the custodial, I think we've picked up a lot of great ideas to add to that. But I'd like to move on, because I think that perhaps this one, but
half our time on that one area, but it's helpful across the board.
No, it's fine. I love these conversations. It's helpful. And so the next product line we boiled it down to, and this is actually just the same as it is, but facilities engineering and project management. Tom, Daryl, and Andrew are working on this project, and so this is what I've gleaned from all of the brainstorming, what success would look like.
Okay.
And I don't remember, I apologize, who was it that said post-completion access to data on all aspects of project scope? I didn't know where that would live. And so Jason and I need to understand where that data lives and how to access it. I don't recall out of the brainstorm, but I think that that has much to do with transparency, and we should all be able to see the same thing.
Well, if it was me, it would have been that we're typically supposed to manage our projects within eBuilder, but a lot of time stuff are not uploaded in eBuilder. Your schedule is not up to date. The files, the minutes of meetings are not uploaded. And sometimes when there's a project, unless you go and ask, like nobody knows that what stage of the project is in the eBuilder or with what documents are available. So it's just a matter of communicating about it and agreeing at the end of the day that eBuilder is where we upload everything, not our other folders in our computers.
So
That's very true,
right.
especially for FE. I mean, FE, until our last project with them, has not been using eBuilder really at all for their designs. And we require all our external designers to make all their submissions on eBuilder, and FE has really been behind on using eBuilder for their work.
Okay. All right, so we need to make sure that so that's a part of communication, and how we measure that, we'll have to figure that out. But,
Right. And we may need to have a discussion with them. And we might have to talk to Andrew about that and just what their business process is between the facilities engineering team and how they're using eBuilder. I knew that they're using a different tool set on certain things for up until a certain point. So
Yeah. Okay. I have a question about the first sentence. Could somebody walk me through the first sentence of this?
So when you submit a project for intake, how long should it be till you get your project set up and your project manager assigned and you have a kickoff meeting? What is the standard? And should be a week, 14 days, 21 days. I mean, it's a major part of the project. Any project can be held up waiting for that to happen. So right now, I don't think there is a expected standard. And I think there should be a expectation, a goal, target, and we should be measuring, how many of them are hitting that target.
So the advertised, what does advertised mean in that context, Tom?
I think it would be whatever we agree the benchmark is.
it's the agreed. Yeah.
If you have a single small project, it should be set up within 10 days. If you have a $10 million project, maybe it's, takes 4 weeks. What is the benchmark?
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I think
Okay. You're getting to something that I want to, this is not going to be this group. You guys are doing what you've been asked to do, but there is going to be a group that's going to look at the capital projects. And one of the taskers I have in mind is to do some of the differentiation you're talking about, Tom, is what are the levels of project and what are the rule sets that apply to them? Something that's very small and low risk shouldn't get the same treatment as a huge multi-million-dollar project that carries with it a lot of risk, of all different flavors of risk. So how would our handling of that, correspond? And I don't think, to your point, that is well established right now.
Right.
Okay. And then, so I'm sorry, the second sentence. So accuracy of estimates compared to actual cost. So what does that mean exactly?
I think when we first brought, that was a FE focused one. So on their designs, are they designing to budget, and are they hitting they're estimating that they're doing in-house accurate, and are we hitting those, or are they off base? The same way we would measure an external designer to hitting their estimates and their targets. How's FE doing designing to budget?
Okay. my observation is we have a challenge with outside designers too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah.
So, okay. I think it's going to be important to as we look at accuracy and what's the band around an estimate, to understand what that band of uncertainty is, and ideally it's getting smaller and smaller the more refined the design.
Yep.
I know, like when Jim Kasda was here, he despaired at actually communicating, how good an estimate was at what point in time, and I think that is something we got to continue to work on. I'll probably never convince the provost, but at least we gotta
Yeah.
understand it among us chickens here.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. I think I'm good with the rest of this. Any other comments on the qualitative statement? Okay, good.
Oh, there we go. So again, as you saw before, the metrics, the brainstorm of metrics and performance measured. So there is one other category that we didn't see in the other, size and scale of operations. So I'll let you take a peek through these.
So designs on schedule and budget. We don't have a quality measure on that. Is there one? Should there be one?
I think we have errors and omissions. We have FE design.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think something to think about would be, if that seems like a little bit of a trailing indicator. There are indicators up front as you were doing design submissions that we would maybe want to also look at them. If we're getting a bunch of comments, or if you're looking at these comments and going, what the heck are they doing? I don't know how we would measure it quantitatively, but I mean, I'm sure you've had, Tom, where you get into the design review and you think these guys actually don't know what they're doing. We've got a problem here. So we would want to catch that before we got to, how many errors and omissions do we have change orders on?
No, I agree with that. At the same time, if you count comments, then people will just be throwing in lots of comments just to get the number up. It's like, how do you really? Yeah.
No, yeah, you got to be careful what you measure, but
I get it. Yep, there could be something there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, another indicator point might be, like you said, you got a lot of RFIs during the contractor bid process, or
addendum,
wildly fluctuating bids on the set of drawings because they're too confusing. They're missing key points.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you ever have a range that's maybe instead of the number of change orders, but do you have any, like, the percentage of the change order increase? That's something that's
cost growth. Typically, once you've awarded a contract, Jason, you would track the cost growth from the contract. So, and there's some acceptable, I would say reasonably acceptable percentages. Sometimes you kick yourself when you actually have to pay the money because it's frustrating. But there is a certain amount that you just end up having to deal with, and it's in the low single digit numbers typically, but it can be higher if you're dealing with something that is very complex, or you get into a bunch of unforeseens that you weren't able to really, ascertain ahead of time. Depends a little on the nature of the project.
I just wondered, I don't know if I saw that on here, but that was one of not only the number, but the, percentage of increase.
Oh, well, good point. So I didn't get that far in going to it. I think if we've got sort of some of the trailing indicators, we could include schedule growth and cost growth along with errors and omissions if we're looking at design firm. I guess some of that is construction delivered on schedule, delivered on budget. It gets to that, but yeah, I guess that's probably in there. It's just a different way of phrasing the same thing.
Okay.
To what degree did they deliver? FE proposal turnaround time. Okay.
That's a big one that sets the stage for when you can get started, and frankly, we've been struggling with.
Yeah. So for my background edification, Tom, how does that happen right now? Is there a discussion of, hey, when do you think you could turn it around, or is it an advertised amount, or is it just, we'll take it and we'll get back to you? How does it currently work?
Send an email in asking for proposal, and then you kind of wait around. And I know they have a very robust internal checking process before these proposals go out.
Mhm.
But it seems like we're struggling waiting on a certain section to say sign off on a proposal. And I'm like, if they're, we need the proposal. Like if that's a small part of it, then they'll just put in a budget. Like I need to know the numbers so I can do a part, so
Okay.
they're holding up like getting these numbers out for some internal checking, I think. And there's no standard. There's no like, yeah, we're trying to hit 10 days. We're trying to hit 14 days, there's no like benchmark. And there's frankly not a real good, when did we say we needed the proposal? It's in an email somewhere. And is that the real start date? Like, did they agree that that's an RFP? So there's a lot of ambiguity around that process that could use a little bit of tuning up.
Yeah, ironically, today I was looking at that I was looking at that metric today, and the number of days in year over year. So there's a lot that we had, and that's one of the things, like the average number of days, and then so that's one of the things that I do agree, should be measured, because we either need to show that we're either getting better or worse, and it's something that can definitely be tracked, and we should have a definite target on that. And just from some of the PIR intakes, it's the data that we have in just the projects was all over the place. So it's something that was very fascinating to see what the what the numbers and what the data showed. So it's very interesting.
And just so I understand how we're doing this, you would initiate this with an email, Tom? Is that how it's getting into FE?
FE proposal request, yeah, usually email from the PM to the FE design lead, or like Matt or somebody. Yeah.
Is it coming from you, or it's coming from the PM, or it could be either?
Usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing, like it probably goes to all different people. Like maybe they should all go to Casey, and Casey processes them, or I don't, it's like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know. All right. Let's keep rolling. Wait. I didn't mean that, Roland. I was just going on to the next line.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
Back to kind of what Tom said, the most important thing for me as a customer, that people are giving me an accurate schedule that allows me to plan, because I may choose not to use facilities engineering for design if I know it's going to take a month. And that's the same. You talked about like the designs delivered on schedule or construction delivered on schedule as a lagging indicator. That is the single most important thing to me as a customer, to allow me to plan my work and schedule. I don't care what the schedule is. I care that it's
predictability
accurate.
of it. Okay.
Yes. Accurate and predictable. That it's met.
Okay.
And that, so if you're waiting around for 30 days for FE to give you a proposal, and then they give you a proposal and it's higher than you thought, and they say they can't start for 8 weeks, and then you're like, whoa, now I got to go outside, and I wasted.
And you wasted all that time. Yep.
Sitting around. Yep. You could have known that on day one. It would have been great,
Yeah. Okay. I think Tom and I are in the same boat there.
Okay. Yep. All right. I got you.
Tell us the truth early on in the process is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure they're not lying to you, but the issue is, can you count on what they said? how much confidence can you put on it, and can you plan on that, or to what degree?
I'm not gonna call it lying. I'm gonna call it optimism. Optimistic versus realistic schedules, and that's what I really think it comes down to. We have a very optimistic group. When they email us back.
Not always an advantage. Okay, I got you. Got it. All right. Projects per PM. This one I think is interesting. I think this one needs to be informed by size and complexity of project, right? So And it's not always the dollar. This is the piece that I think our process currently lacks is we kind of gauge things off how the dollar value is, which isn't always a good indicator of risk and complexity. It sometimes is. There's a correlation, but it's not a great correlation. It's a modest correlation. So this one I think needs to be informed by that. But that's a good one. I think we want to have good distribution of the work and feel like everybody's lifting their share of the burden, and we're not overloading anybody and bogging them down. Sign per designer. This would be in-house. This would be by contract. Number of projects per designer.
Yep.
Either.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is good. This is really good stuff. I don't have any other questions or comments. Anybody? Anything on this one? Not Bridget. She's moving on. All right, let's go.
We have opportunity as a team. This is for you.
Okay. No. I mean, if I miss something that somebody wants to point out to me, so I don't think I got it and I don't. All right.
All right. So
Somebody want to just one of you, maybe Stacy, just step me through this.
I actually think it's better maybe to go to the Excel sheet. Is that more effective?
No.
I can
Nope.
step you through this if you want. I'm reading it for the first time though. Success is defined by a clear and timely response with accurate communication, capability to perform repairs, assigning the appropriate skill level required to perform the responsibilities, and accuracy of estimates. All right, I'm going to break this down. I actually think that the Excel spreadsheet is easier to break it down because there's lots of things in that first sentence that really are
your brain doesn't think like mine. I got to start with the big picture and then we'll narrow it down.
Then I'm gonna
I won't ask you to do anymore. Let me just read it.
yeah.
That's a heck of a first sentence. What I would maybe ask that you look at is a more positive statement of quality instead of the negative phrasing.
Got it.
So when we talked about minimizing efficiencies in the second sentence here, this would include the whole supply and procurement aspect of this. Is that a correct assumption that I'm reading in?
And I derived that also from how often do you have to go back and get tools? Are you prepared to do the job? How many returns do you have to come just to do the work?
Yep.
There's some of that. So the inefficiencies have much to do with how we're doing the job, not or the skill set. All of that plays into that.
Got it. Okay, this is good. All right. Now, Stacy, on to the spreadsheet. Go ahead.
So the first one, PM's completed on time. It's preventive maintenance. I know my concern is ones that aren't completed sometimes lead to more expensive jobs, right? So my classic example, a catch basin doesn't get proactively pumped and all that silt flows into your storm drain and you have drain brain actually cleaning out the pipe at that point. And that's easily measured. I think, let's see, Dave, what's the next one? Monthly budget execution?
Yeah, that was as you take your, lack of a better term, you take your year-long budget divided by 12 or wherever you might have the peaks. And then if you burn hot because you had a lot of CM for that month, you might need to look at how you classify or organize your labor and say, you know what, I need to slow down on CM work this month and get to more projects to sort of balance the budget out. So just how you're looking in terms of what you had budgeted and what you've executed month to month as you look toward your whole year.
Okay.
Next one, service requests and work orders received versus the number completed each month. So instead of just looking at backlog, trying to predict trends there.
Yeah, when you say received, we're saying essentially received as valid ones, or that somebody said, yes, go on. Where are we measuring receipt, I guess is the question.
I think it's by the person who has found the deficiency, or might be from the FM on that side. So received into the queues of the ZFMs and the GFPs, and as they dole it out, it's how many of those were completed on the worker side. So
Okay.
overall, it will show sort of a good news picture or a bad news picture. Are we being efficient with our labor? Are we
Okay.
clearing our queues, or do we just have just a maintenance backlog?
From
Okay.
a Maximo standpoint, you're actually measuring, I may put in a service request or a work request that gets turned into a work order. You're actually measuring it once it becomes a work order, I think. Is that not correct?
You can measure it any way. We've got multiple. We can measure it by SR. We can measure it by work order.
So
We're
we would,
currently doing
I
that.
think when we look at this, we're going to have two more elements too. One is that what kind of service requests, what level priority service requests are we talking about? 50s get addressed way faster, of course, but like what about 30s? And the other thing would be that I don't know if just asking if everybody has the same thing or no. A lot of times you have a completed work order, but the work is not done.
This one's probably going to take a little bit. This one particular line is because you can have many work orders to a service request. They can be closed out. Some of them are lagging. This one's probably going to take the most evaluation and scrutiny to find out what really you want to get to. So I think this dashboard will probably be the most scrutinized, if you will.
Well, this is a good one to scrutinize, and you're getting to the point of my question is we want to be clear on where we're measuring. I'll share an anecdote which preceded you, Sarah, and Dave. But early after my arrival, I was invited to a discussion. Me and Pat went over on West Campus, and what became clear was there was a lot of stuff that wasn't really making it from the SCL person over to the ZFD, and yet what the issue was that the faculty had in their mind that hey, this thing's been submitted, the SR is in, how come I don't see a service person? So this is just, I don't have an answer in mind. I'm not trying to get you to say something in particular. This is going to be an area for further discussion and at least understanding, so that we could measure something and then maybe drill in further as needed for troubleshooting. If, for instance, in that West Campus thing, we had been measuring the overall process and we got feedback to say, hey, look, you guys aren't turning these things around. And then we drilled in and said, well, they're kind of sitting in the queue over here, and we need to tighten up that aspect of this process if we want a quicker end-to-end turnaround. That would have been a helpful, but we didn't have any of that in place at the time. So this is what I would like to get us towards.
So I would actually take responsibility for that part of it, because that was what was happening. And we have a different, of course, facility manager after that. But that might have not be, that might be a one-off thing that screws up the whole numbers.
We also
right.
have
So my point is well, some of these things are just predictable that we will have the issue to deal with. Okay, and so we want to have a sufficiently high level measure and well defined, so we understand the end points, and then the ability to, if this is not satisfactory, we would have sufficient resolution in between time to say, oh, it's in this little part of it. What do we have to go and discover? Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's, hey, we lost our supplier for that particular thing, and now it takes us much longer to get the parts. It could be any number of things. We won't know. I'm just saying is build in, first off, a good measuring point with well understood endpoints, and then we need enough kind of subordinate troubleshooting measuring points that you could pinpoint more precisely the troubleshooting efforts. So I think we got that one. That horse has been beaten. Got the whiteboards. I like that one. That's a big attention getter. This corrective cost per building, I would like, this is good, and maybe a couple of more of these. I would like to understand PM, and maybe it's not per building, but you know, how we've got to get past buildings and think about assets that, you know, you manage a building per se, you manage parts of the building. So maybe consider looking at how our spending on assets is either appropriate, too much, too little. Head count per trade. This, I think, would be part of a larger picture. If what we're trying to get at is, do we have an appropriately sized and skilled workforce? How would we know that, or how would we measure it? I don't know that this would be the only thing I would ask, but this would be a part of it. So
Part of
maybe
that,
a little
Rick,
more
is-
about what's the workload.
Part of that, Rick, also is as you look at, there is an APA level standard for number of trades per square foot. And you know, you would have one carpenter per, just say 250,000 square feet. And so I know within SCL, we are greatly underneath that. So if you look at hiring for NCRE per an APA level standard of what the book says, we should hire 30 more trades. But if you take a ratio for what SCL has now compared to what NCRE will add, it will only be about a hire of 8. So there's a great discrepancy on what the book answer says, how many trades we should have versus what in reality we have. So that was what I was getting at with that. Is there a function to say per square footage, or what you said? Do we have the right number of people to do the jobs that we are facing right now?
Okay, I follow you, Dave. This is a good start, and I would say just work this one a little bit more, because I think this can be fleshed out a little bit.
I've got a
SRs
question
per, yep.
about that. What Dave was just saying as far as NCRE, and maybe this is related to this, or maybe it's more towards the project management group. If we put a new building online, there should be virtually zero maintenance needed. For how long? Or
What kind of maintenance are we talking about? Corrective maintenance?
Corrective maintenance. Yeah, preventive maintenance I get, but corrective maintenance, I feel sometimes is the repair for lack of attention during construction.
Yeah, quite possibly. Obviously, you've been talking to some of our trades, because they'll tell you, if this had been done right in the first place, I wouldn't be coming out here to do this fix. And I think there is certainly some truth to that. It would be helpful, I think, for everybody. It would be helpful to everybody to understand where it is and where it isn't, and get better at it. You know, it's something that for us to manage and work on. You know, I wish we could wave the magic wand and make it go away. To Sarah's point, some of the stuff gets VE'd out. Some of it is, that guy's hungover on Monday morning when he's doing the work. Some of it is, we need a little more quality oversight with well-meaning and well-skilled crews. They still need the right level of oversight. There's a lot of stuff that feeds into it. I think it's a good point, Andy, because, especially in that first year after you BOD a building, you shouldn't really, ideally the first several years, but especially in that first year, that's when you should be doing all the shakedown and making that construction contractor do the job right. So there's a quality aspect there. Yeah. Listen, gang, I have to drop off. This is great conversation, and I feel like I'm not doing it justice. Bridget, can we talk about getting onto the next one too, so I can finish, or maybe you can step me through some others on the side?
Right. Well, we just did contracts were not quite there yet. But it isn't a huge lift. But this one, the tasking, just to let you know, we're
just keep flipping. Just keep flipping. Go.
That's it.
That's all. Okay. Okay. This is fantastic work. This is exactly what I had in mind. Qualitative, quantitative, and I think we're on the right track. So do you need anything from me in terms of guidance or feedback that you didn't get in the course of the last hour?
Why don't I touch base with you after?
Okay.
What else you got?
Anybody on the call? Okay. All right. I appreciate the discussion. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be very, very helpful. I know some of you, you're already leaping onto solutions. Hold your horses. Let's make sure we frame these things so that we identify them accurately and identify them with the idea in mind towards guiding improvements. That's ultimately what we want to get to, is we want to have this stuff in place so that we can improve and really, up our game out of all this. Okay, got a dash. Thank you all. I really appreciate the effort, and keep it up. See ya.
So team that's still on, I will send out an email with the next steps and what we should complete. Jason and I have a lot of looking at data and the availability of it. We need Tableau, so you all need to be able to see what we have. And so we'll move forward. The next one would be the decisions that we'd make based on the data that we have. We need to choose just a few from each category to start with, because this is, a ton. It's fantastic, but it's not realistic in which to manage right away in a program like this. So,
Bridget, can I ask a quick question? Like the service request PM one, a lot of the metrics are really, low level that we're looking at. They're meant for frontline supervisors. For this group, we need to filter those up to like a high level, but how do we do that without losing some of the meat of the work, if you want? The true metrics.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to ask that again.
Okay, so I think we were tasked to present a handful of high-level metrics that someone like Rick could use, right? There's a lot of frontline data that actually becomes the leading indicators that you have to track in order to have meaningful high-level metrics. If we report only the high-level metrics to Rick, you're missing a big piece, which is our recommendation on kind of the frontline metrics or the low-level metrics. How will those be tracked?
So basically, we will continue to do these low-level tracking. It's just, what do we communicate that would be of interest, or what do we aggregate as far as Tableau in creating the bigger picture? So what we're doing here actually informs any of the other decisions. Metrics always need to be counted at this level. And so really what we're trying to make sure we do or don't do is look at the big picture and then work back into it, just to, because that doesn't tell the story, basically. It creates a story that may not exist, right? Because they're looking for cost and efficiencies, but that doesn't help you all the time. So I don't know if that answered the question, but the process we're going through is, at the end of it, Rick, what would you need to know if you were to make great big giant level changes, right? So we're going to change how many people we put on a job or training, that kind of stuff at our level. But what are the impacts of all of those changes? So it'd be an aggregate of, building care has 3 or 4 things that he'd actually look at. And so part of the process is we move forward. We're not creating a metrics program just to communicate at high level.
Right. And I think, Stacy, to your point, is where if you didn't get into the weeds, so let's say if you were looking across the board and you saw a deficiency in one area and, on a baseline, you were down, if you were, and I'm going to just, this is just going across the board, like you were negative, you were below a baseline in some areas, and then you were above a baseline in other areas. And on your dashboard, you net it out and you're kind of average and you're almost net zero. If you were to show that and you're like, okay, we're showing that pretty good, without having that lower level metrics, you're like, okay, how do I show that we're really in a bad place here and we're in a better place here? You can kind of figure out how to tell that story. So we're going to keep the lower the lower level metrics, right? And then use that to determine how best to tell that next level and say, okay, if we were to just have summed up that level, summed up those metrics and came out flat or came out even, we would have never known the areas that we really needed to touch base into how to form and shape that story. Maybe we need to alter the narrative just slightly and show it, just tweak it. It's not like rewriting the entire story, but just tweak it just a little bit. So, when you create the dashboard, you have the dashboard and it's got, maybe 2 or 3 different metrics on it just for that level. But then you have all the other, supporting tabs in, that could help represent that. So,
yeah. So your example, you track like the number of areas on track or something versus the actual percentage aggregated.
right. You
Yes,
you
I totally understand.
You try to figure out how to phrase that. Because I was, again, I was looking at a couple of dashboards this morning and I'm like, okay, it's great. The visualization I saw was like, it's kind of told the story, but it wasn't the best way to tell the story. And I'm like, all right, the data's there. We just have to shift it and shape it just a little differently. So, and we're going to keep that data, and it might be great for somebody that wants to analyze it somewhere differently, and it's just on a different tab. But the overall, the first leading dashboard that you have, it just wasn't a great way to represent it. The first thing you see, so, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have value, and we're not going to throw it away.
So next steps, Jason and I need to touch base with Jason, to start looking at what are the reality as far as the data that we have, and, solicit his advice just as he provided on how to look at this or aggregate it, et cetera, for the next level of conversation. I'm highly encouraged by Rick's enthusiasm because he'll tell you if he's not happy with things as well. So, his honesty, and this is a really good start, and he was excited about it, is encouraging. So you guys have put a lot of work into this, and I really, really appreciate it. I think a lot of thought, and I can already tell that you're looking for solutions, which is good too, and we'll get to that point. So I'll send out something today. I have to meet with Jason and Elisa to get caught up on a few things, and then Craig and Pat to talk about what is the horizontal view at a different level. What does it look like for business officers, and then also contract colleges. And so we're going to talk about that. But please expect an email out today with the next homework after Jason and I try to meet this afternoon. But you guys are awesome. Thank you. This has been really, really great, and I appreciate you helping Rick with the understandings of all these. So,
hey, Bridget, I have one question. I think as you're going through your slides, it looks like for the contracts tab, you didn't have the metrics we had put together, and I think it might be because they're hiding on the Microsoft Teams website.
Okay.
They're under the general tab. If you go into files there, it's in there.
Perfect.
Mark told us to put them, so that's what we did.
Okay, so you put it in the general. Okay, I'll go take a peek again.
Yeah, he created a tab on each of or in that workbook for each of the teams, and that's where we were told to put our stuff. So.
All right, perfect. So I'll update that and take a peek. But at least I think we should catch up because we brought you in at a little bit lower level, and we need to figure out the financial piece and the information where we're going to gather that, because we do need to, apply some of the financials as well.
Absolutely.
Great. So Mark, I need some meetings.
Okay, I know how to arrange those.
Thank you very much.
And yes, Elisa, I do see everything in the teams. So that was part of it, is that as we try to use Microsoft Teams to try to get all of us into the same pattern of submitting information and so on. So I think we'll get there as a group. Just Teams is new to all of us as well. So.
Oh, I learned a lot last week.
Elisa and I had a good meeting last week.
Yeah, we learned that if you go in by the web, you see different things than if you have it just on your computer.
Yes.
It operates differently.
Okay, well, if there isn't anything else, we'll get some more meetings on, and I still like working in the teams versus trying to get these meetings together. You guys have been very generous with your time, even on a weekly basis. So more to come. Thank you and happy Monday.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Bridget. Bye.
Thank you.